You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Got a number for you, Mr. Stenovec.
Okay.
Less than 20% of undergraduate computer science degrees go to women. Less than 20%. And that data is coming from the National Science Foundation. So that means 4 out of every 5 degrees, 4 out of every 5 in an industry already dominated by men. Have you seen the Barbie movie, anybody? Go to men. And our next guests are trying to change that and get more young women and individuals into coding.
Yeah, very pleased to have with us this afternoon Osi Imeokparia, the CEO of Kode with Klossy. Also with us is KWK's Content and Community Coordinator, Alexis Williams. Both are here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. KWK is a nonprofit organization that receives funding from Bloomberg Philanthropies, the philanthropic arm of Bloomberg LP. It is the parent company of Bloomberg Radio. Osi, I want to start with you.
Sure.
Just talk to us a little about this organization because it's doing some really important work.
Yeah. So Kode with Klossy started in 2015 and is the brainchild of our founder, Karlie Kloss. So for those who are familiar, Karlie Kloss is an incredible entrepreneur, supermodel, philanthropist. And she started this organization back in 2015 based on her own personal experience, learning how to code and noticing when she lifted her head up from the keyboard that there weren't other women in the room. And so she used her platform, as she has done many a time, to reach out to her audience and say, who else would want to have this coding experience? And she was overwhelmed by the response from her audience. 21 scholarship positions, and she had thousands of people interested. And that was the germ for Kode with Klossy back in 2015. And so here we are 8 years later, and we now have over 10,000 young people in our alumni community.
Wow.
And this summer, we're about to wrap up our biggest summer ever, 62 camps, almost 5,000 scholarships awarded, and we're kind of on a roll.
I want to bring Alexis in a moment, but tell
Sure.
us about those alumni. 8 years, that's a big chunk
Yes.
of individuals and time invested. What are they doing now? What are you hearing about that alumni base?
Yeah, so our oldest cohort of alumni who went through our summer programming started in 2016. And so those folks are now 20, 25 years old. So they are graduating from university, they're getting their first jobs, all the way through the cohort that we have this summer, who are some of our youngest scholars this summer are 13. And so when they complete this program, they will join our global community. And so they're doing a range of things from, giving TED Talks like Alexis has done, or winning science challenges. We had a winner of the Apple Swift Student Challenge. So they're really just sort of incredibly applying their skills and continuing to sort of pursue their passion in tech.
Alexis, come on in on the work that you guys are doing and just kind of building out this community and what you are seeing.
Yeah, I just think one of the most amazing things about Kode with Klossy is so many people are interested in engineering in general, but I feel like it sounds something so, difficult and challenging. But the work that Kode with Klossy does is really demystifying that idea of what is an engineer, what does it mean to make an app, what does it mean to make a website. So it's really amazing to offer this opportunity to a bunch of young people to have that demystified, to make their first apps, to make their first websites. Because I think that's like one of the first steps into showing people who have been pushed to the margins in a space like engineering that it's not only possible, but there are a group of people out there that are more than willing and able to support them. And that's why the work that Kode with Klossy does is so important.
We talk so much about inclusivity. And when you said push to the margins, tell us about some of the individuals, like who is actually participating in the program? Because I agree with you. I hear more and more when we talk about diversity, it's about inclusion, feeling like you're belonging, and that if you might be curious, but you're just like, I don't belong.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Kode with Klossy opens its doors to young women, gender expansive youth, and trans kids. And really, it's one of the first places where I talk to scholars all the time. They're like, this is the first place I've felt welcome and accepted. And that is honestly more important than being able to learn how to code. Yeah. Like having it be a space, having Kode with Klossy be a space where this is one of the first times people are walking into a room and feel like they're being received with open arms is so important to us.
We talk about, Tim and I have so many different conversations about diversity, inclusion.
Yeah.
We do it with women in venture capital and lack of funding and so on and so forth. But, there needs to be these important big steps that are game-changing, life-changing, that really make a difference.
And I think what's interesting is I think there's diversity on a lot of dimensions. About half of our scholars qualify for free and reduced lunch. So we have socioeconomic diversity. We also have folks that come in actually knowing how to code. So to Alexis's point, what they are coming for is not just the rigor of the skill building, but also the inclusion and acceptance. And so we're finding this really interesting mix of people that you wouldn't necessarily find out in the world, naturally gravitating into these same spaces.
Yeah.
Again, 80% of our scholars are people of color. So, not only gender and diversity, socioeconomic, skill level, political spectrum, we are sort of a space that welcomes all in terms of trying to crack open the door to a community. Yeah.
I want to talk to you, Osi, about the way that your own experience at some of the biggest companies, some of the biggest tech companies in the world kind of shaped the kind of leader you are today.
Yeah. Did you always feel like you belonged?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, you were at Google for years, you were at eBay for years, you were in the not-for-profit space at the John Zuckerberg initiative before this. Talk to me a little bit about, I don't know, your experience and what you want to bring to the table. Like Carol asked, did you always feel accepted?
Well, I think that's why I was so drawn to the Kode with Klossy opportunity. So I joined Kode with Klossy back in March. So I'm coming up on 6 months, and so I have lived experience as a Black woman in tech, and often the only one in many of these rooms. And I think, I definitely did not always feel accepted. I think there was a tipping point in my career where you feel like you have built your craft and understand your skills well enough to sort of feel comfortable in rooms, but you definitely build to that. It's not something that you sort of walk in the door having or knowing. But I think what that experience taught me is that we not only have to focus on upskilling the individual and providing incredible programs like we do at Kode with Klossy, but we also have to think about what are the systems that prevent people from being successful. So I would claim that I'm quite credentialed, right? Stanford undergrad, master's degree, so all the credentials
Such an underachiever.
you could ask for, but still found challenges. So it's not about the individual talent. There are also hurdles that are systemic. And so really thinking about that holistically is what we are going to do in the next 8 years of Kode with Klossy's path, is to say we're doing an incredible job of sparking the interest of a new generation, but what are we doing with companies like Bloomberg and others to really think about the systems on the other side? What are the practices around hiring and retention and promotion that are really going to create opportunities for people?
Well, and we've often talked about this with just women. I'm just going to very basic in terms of, women come in, men out of college, they start at the same level, and then as they start to go up the ladder, it gets very, very different. So where's the support network for that? I do want to ask you though, before we go, because we only have about a couple minutes, Alexis, come on back in. It's a 2-week summer camp. I want to see if I've got the numbers right. 62 camps, 40 in person in 20 cities, 22 virtual. It's like massive, 13 to 18-year-olds. So what do they do in those 2 weeks?
So basically, we have 4 different curriculums where scholars are learning the basics to different curriculums like mobile applications, web development, AI, ML, data science, and it's a short 2-week period. So they're learning really basics and getting to build off of that basics that they learn in the first week with a final project in the second week. So it's important that they're sitting down, and getting their education, but then they get to actually put it into practice. And then at the end of camp, show their peers, show their families the great things that they're making.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
What's the youngest age that somebody can join?
13. And so what I think is remarkable, again, diversity in age range. You have 13-year-olds who step up their game to be in the room with 18-year-olds who are also learning these skills. And it's an application, not only of the hard skills, but some of the what I call 21st century leadership skills around collaboration and critical thinking and creativity that are really also applied in that final project as well. So it really is incredible to see 13-year-olds sort of hanging tough there. Yeah.
I have a lot of nieces, and I often just say, sometimes you just got to try something because it might just spark an interest. And I feel like that's what you guys, you're exposing them. 2 weeks is not a ton of time, but you can pack a lot in, and you can spark an interest, and then they know kind of like, okay, now I know at least the question to ask, or I know something to pursue. And I think it's just really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Well, come back and let us know how things are going.
We would love to.
Bring Carly with you.
We would love to. We would love to.
I've met her once. She's really tall.